Okay, so we're going to get started. I was hoping that there will be more people, but hopefully they'll walk in as we're in the middle. So my name is Marixa. I am Commissioner of District 3 here in the city of Deltona. And, you know, for those of you who are here for the first time, we have this event every year, usually during the middle of May. I think last year we did the beginning of June. But it's a lot of interesting information that is needed during hurricane season. I think a lot of what we gave out last year was very useful last year considering what we had to go through, right? If you have any questions, we wait till the speaker finishes, and please ask all the questions you want. It's very important that you walk out of here with a lot of information in your mind that you need to use during hurricane or any bad weather or something. Those of you who've been here before know our next speaker. I think he's been married to the city of Deltona for the past 6 years, maybe. But he's always here to help us. He's always brought in little knickknacks from Spectrum. However, this time around, they're changing the logo, so he's gonna mail it to us. And if you guys are interested, we'll be sure that you get one. So we're going to call Brian up to the podium. And Brian is, I can never say it, meteorologist. Yep. Hey, got it. I got it. From Channel 13. So I'm just going to give him the microphone and let him start with you. Please ask him lots of information, all right? You know, I've always used to say there's no dumb question other than the one that you walk out with not asking, right?
Very true. All right, well, thank you very much. Let's see if this is on. We'll see here in a second. Yeah, it's 6 or 7 years now. I've been here in Florida for over 8 now, and every year I look forward to coming up and speaking with this group. And if you're new, you'll get a fresh show. If you're attendee past, a new look to the show and some different slides, different rundowns, so hopefully it goes smoothly. This is my first time actually doing this particular PowerPoint. And by the way, I did wear my shoes, my radar shoes, and my socks this year. I had to get the socks. Yes, my tropical storm socks, which if we're expecting a storm, I'll wear these. The office staff knows that if I wear my lightning tie, and you'll see it on air, if I'm wearing my lightning tie, you know it's going to be a busy day of severe weather potential. I also match the socks in those cases so that the newsroom knows. Yeah, look for that tie. If you see that tie, or I wear the sun tie, and it's usually just a clear blue day, I'm starting to collect the weather ties to actually help me out with the weather on air. But the lightning tie is something that you'll want to pay attention to. And I wear it during hurricanes, and that's why I'm up here today. Talk a little bit about hurricanes in Central Florida. And our motto at Spectrum News 13, don't be scared, be prepared. And that's what we're doing. We're preparing you for the upcoming season, which is now 2 weeks from tomorrow, officially starting. That, by the way, is a satellite image of Hurricane Michael as it made landfall at Mexico Beach. I need to freshen that up with an Irma or an Ian or a Nicole, hopefully for next year. And I was wondering if this was... technology. And yes, Spectrum News 13, thank you. Going through a logo change, that's why I didn't bring any goodies this year, but we're going to at least send the hurricane guides up for you. So, you're calm in the storm. That is why we go with the motto, don't be scared, be prepared. You go into a storm, we take you through the storm in a calm approach. We don't want to hype, we don't want to scare, because it just, when you freak out, you start to lose the mental capacity to get through a storm, and it really wears on you emotionally. Quick update on our team. Some changes since last year. There are 5 full-time and 2 part-time meteorologists. From left to right, I've got Chris Gilson, who works our weekend nights, and Thursday, Friday, dayside. Amy Sweezy used to work at WESH, too, has been with us for over a year now, and she helps us a lot. She fills in. She comes in during hurricanes to help relieve the staff when they need some sleep. Mallory Nichols, our weeknight meteorologist. I work dayside. I'm usually on air between 4 and 7 p.m. It's because the sea breezes collide at that time, and they wanted to make sure that they had somebody that they wanted to put in there that they were going to keep very busy as we get through the season. And yes, it looks like rainy season has arrived. Maureen McCann wakes you up in the morning. Rob Eicher used to work at Spectrum News 13 back in the day. His wife, Stephanie, was an anchor for a while. Rob is also in occasionally helping us out. And our newest addition, Zach Covey, came from West Palm Beach, the TV market down there with hurricane experience. So we're very excited to have Zach. And he's our weekend morning guy, and he's on Monday through Wednesday, day side. He's got a lot of great energy. Klystron 13, it is our radar that is not a picture, and the creative services team is aware that I want a picture of our actual radar because that's an older radar. There's what it actually looks like out in Cocoa. It's about 35 miles east of downtown. If you don't know where Cocoa or West Cocoa is, looks like a big golf ball on a tee. And inside of that dome there is some very powerful equipment. And we're going to play a quick video. Some of you saw it last year, but it'll give you a better idea of what that radar actually does. My PowerPoint, for some reason, locked, so we have to use a PDF. So we're going to go into this little
We are
offside
so
here.
excited to introduce you to the world's most powerful television radar, Klystron 13. Just down the road here in West Cocoa, what looks like a golf ball on a tee is the best technology you're going to find anywhere. Let's go take a look. So here's our tower. On top of the tower itself, something we call a radome. In the radome, we actually have a dish that is scanning the horizon at 360 degrees. It's able to go out approximately 300 miles from where we're located. Gives us a great view of not only the state of Florida,
There's Deltona,
but down into the Bahamas, giving you an earlier heads up on tropical activity and fronts that are coming in our direction. Now, the dome itself is actually able to shed rain at 10 times more than a typical radome would. When it comes to the 3 or 4 inch rainfall rates per hour, that is shedding that rainfall, so we're able to see through the rain and give you a clearer view of the storm itself. So welcome inside to our data and equipment center, and obviously here it's very loud. It's because we have a lot of high-end technology running all at the same time, not to mention the air conditioning unit that you really need to keep all of this equipment cooled 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is actually a raw look at Klystron 13, what we're able to see behind the scenes. What this does for us is it not only alerts us to anything that may have gone wrong, say a power outage here at the site, but it also allows us to change the elevation at which the radar is scanning the horizon. It gives us a look at storms that are farther out, storms that are closer. In any case, it gives us a better look at the storms, giving you more of a heads up. So when we take a sector scan of the storm itself, I'm able to grab, say, a 45-degree angle. What that does for us is it allows us to pick out the worst part of the storm, giving you more of a heads up when nasty weather is coming in our direction. So we've taken a look at Klystron 13 in the raw, but the secret sauce is actually in this cabinet right here. We can't open up this cabinet because Klystron 13 is working very hard right now. It's a linear beam vacuum tube, but let's put it this way. It is the most robust television radar in the world, working hard for you. But the weather experts at Spectrum News 13, the nation's only dual certified team of meteorologists, actually trained to use Klystron 13 to keep you ahead of the storm.
All right, so we'll wrap up the Spectrum News
We
plugs,
are so
right?
excited to introduce you to the world's most
Go right on into what we are here for, and that's to prepare for the upcoming season and some insights on what we may be looking at this upcoming season as well. I think you just got to go up to view and then up to the view at the top and then go down to read mode, and it should. There we go. Perfect. Thank you very much, Catherine. All right, so hurricane season. I mentioned it starts officially June 1st. Notice we've got May 1st on there, though, and there's a little bubble between May 1st and June 1st. We've had an uptick. Last year, we did not have anything that actually developed in the month of May. This year, not looking likely, but we're watching a couple of areas. Not going to be a concern to us. But in any case, the season officially begins June 1st, but we can get storms outside the season. Notice the peak here is in mid-September, and that is when we see the highest number of named storms. When it comes to the peak of the season, which runs basically August 20th through October 10th, September 10th falling right in the middle of that, 53% of our tropical storms fall in this period, 61% of our hurricanes, and because of the ocean heat and the time of year, 73% of hurricanes that are major strength, which is a Category 3 or higher, and we'll cover the categories coming up, fall in that time frame. So Colorado State, the first to come out with their forecast for the upcoming season, they're going to go with 13 named storms, 6 hurricanes, 2 major hurricanes. Notice the average in the right column, 14.73. So they're pretty much on average, if not slightly below. I don't do major hurricane forecasting. I let the hurricane forecasters dive into the data and the climate, and that's how I follow the forecasts, and then we focus on what's developing and coming. So I don't look ahead to the season ahead and give a forecast like Colorado State or NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I let the folks that deal with the climate deal with that. So this season, early forecast teams calling for a slightly below average season, but there's a lot of uncertainty this year because current sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic are already very warm, above average, as a matter of fact. And we have a possible developing El Nino. So what is an El Nino? It typically means warmer sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific and stronger trade winds for the Atlantic. What winds do then aloft is they tear storms apart. And so that's what we're hoping for, even with the water as warm as it is. We're hoping those strong winds help to take those storms apart and don't let them breathe. It can mean a quieter Atlantic season overall, but we always say it only takes one storm. Last year, we dealt with 2, Ian and Nicole. When it comes to forecasting, this is what we all see, right? The spaghetti plots everywhere. So comparing recent seasons, last year, this is named storms from June 1st through August 25th. By the time we hit August 25th back in 2020, we had 13 named storms already. Notice how that trailed off to just 3 last year. You see that one? This year, if you didn't hear, back in January, a storm that had developed out in the Atlantic Basin was a subtropical storm, and I'll discuss what a subtropical storm is in just a second. It's not going to get a name because they looked at the post information, they dove in and found that this storm had developed, but they're not going to give it a name. So our next storm will be, it'll be tropical wave number 2, I believe. The Atlantic storm names, do we have any Arlenes in here? All right. First up. Well, first up would be Arlene. We work our way all the way down to Whitney. Hopefully we don't even get to Arlene's this year, right? So hurricane development. What does it take for a hurricane to develop? A hurricane needs ocean waters of at least 79, more like 80, 82 degrees, and high moisture in the atmosphere. A lot of moisture. Of course, you're over an ocean, you're going to get the moisture. We have it today. You step outside, and it's that air you can wear. Grabs on and won't let go, just kind of slaps you in the face. The storm must be located at least 5 degrees away from the equator. So it's about 5 degrees north or higher in on Earth here. Low wind shear is ideal for hurricane development. Wind shear, as you go up through the atmosphere, let's say you're taking the stairs up to a space, wind is coming in different directions and different speeds as you walk up. Shear is what helps to keep storms at bay, and that's what we're looking at potentially this year with an El Nino. And an unstable atmosphere will provide fuel for some thunderstorms to develop, clusters of storms that gain some strength, and you get a little spin in the atmosphere, and that's when we could develop a hurricane. Well, stable air is what we're also looking for. And when we get into the later summer months, you start to develop Saharan air, the dust that comes off the coast of Africa, the Saharan desert, typically found in the Atlantic. It's more midsummer to early fall. The dust is known to limit tropical development because it keeps the atmosphere stable and cooler. The dust scatters light high up into the atmosphere, allowing the stability, but we can get this dust traveling all the way across the Atlantic and out into the Gulf of Mexico. And we've seen some beautiful sunsets, and we'll talk about that on air when Saharan dust is coming in our direction, because it really does make the sky look pretty, but it's also helping us to keep storms at bay. In June, now that we're just a couple weeks away from June, I still can't believe we're almost halfway through the year already. Typical development zones are highlighted in yellow. The Gulf of Mexico on down to the Western Caribbean, up off the East Coast and the Mid-Atlantic coast. Usually a pretty low chance that we're going to develop anything, but if something does develop, it's usually in these areas. A lot of times it's going to be along a front, same as we would see in November. Now, take it to September, and obviously a very colorful map. We have a much higher chance as we work our way through the mid part of September and the season, the hurricane season itself, because the Atlantic waters are very warm at this point, and we get waves that are constantly coming off. We had a wave come off of Africa just the other day. The first true tropical wave came off the coast of Africa just a couple days ago. Going to fall apart. But by the time we get to midsummer, the temperatures have warmed enough in the high zone there, running from the central Atlantic all the way up just off the eastern seaboard. But notice even here in Florida in September, we run a moderate risk that these storms are going to impact us. When it comes to forecasting hurricanes that are getting a little closer, let's say they're developed and we're watching them, we're checking out the pattern and the favorable pattern in the tropics 7 to 10 days out. That is when we're getting an idea of what may occur. Accuracy at that point is still a little murky. 4 to 7 days out is when we start watching the trends. Is it looking more or less likely to occur? Are the models consistently showing storm development? 2 to 4 days out, at this point, the timing and impacts are starting to be seen. When is the time of closest approach? We've already got our hurricane watches, our hurricane warnings, and about a day or two out is when the forecast details really come clear when it comes to rain, wind, surge, and timing. I mentioned that at this point we're already dealing with watches and warnings. If you're new to the area, tropical storm watch means sustained winds of 39 to 73 miles per hour are possible within that watch area within the next 48 hours. If a warning is issued, those same winds are expected within the warning area in the next 36 hours. Preps should already be underway. So we get tropical storm watches, subtropical storm watch and warning. I mentioned that first storm of the season in January was a subtropical storm. So what's the difference? Well, a tropical storm means maximum winds and deepest storms are found near the center of the storm. The winds are generally greater than 39 miles per hour. Subtropical storm is when maximum winds and deepest storms are found outside the center. So they're not concentrated around the center of circulation. They're all spread out around the center. But a subtropical storm also contains winds of 39 miles per hour or greater. So the wind speeds are the same. It's just a matter of looking at the storm itself, and is that thunderstorm cluster concentrated around the center, or is it all spread out and wide? So subtropical and tropical storms can have the same impacts, but a tropical storm is going to be a little more of a concern to us. Hurricane watches? Well, they are issued when winds that are sustained over 74 miles per hour are possible within the next 48 hours. So much like a tropical storm watch, but the wind at that point 39 miles per hour or greater. With a hurricane, it's 74 miles per hour or greater. And a warning is issued when those winds are expected within the next 36 hours. At that point, it's already time to start wrapping up your preps. And I know we've got folks here that are going to talk more about what you need to do to prepare before, during, and after a storm. So what is rapid intensification when it comes to hurricanes? Winds must increase at least 35 miles per hour within 24 hours to get rapid intensification. What happens is these storms roll over some very warm water near the coast. And this happened with Hurricane Michael. It rapidly intensified within 36 hours and ended up being a Category 5 hurricane at landfall up in the Panhandle. So these storms can go into a rapid intensification, and it makes forecasting very difficult. But 1 in 3 storms will undergo something called rapid intensification. Most Category 4 and 5 storms will undergo some sort of rapid intensification. So when it comes to the category, when we intensify these storms, here's the scale, the Saffir-Simpson scale. That is the scale we use to measure the speed. Category 1, 74 to 95. Category 3, 111 to 129, and a Category 5 storm, 157 miles per hour plus. And guess what? Ian, as it made landfall, was a Category 5 storm. Yeah, so if you've been down to Naples, Fort Myers area, how beautiful absolutely gorgeous it is. Some areas still to this day look uninhabitable. And you know, Nicole, I'd have to go back and look and see if they adjusted. But Nicole obviously had a huge impact on our East Coast. And I was out there just last week shooting our hurricane special. And the damage is just incredible at Wilbur by the Sea and some of our coastal communities. Category 1 hurricane, I mentioned 74 mile per hour winds up to 95. This is when we bring large branches and trees that topple, power outages. They could last for days. Category 2, house siding and roof damage. Many trees at this point start toppling. Power outages last days to weeks. Category 3, when you get up to 111 miles per hour, this is when we are labeling it a major hurricane at this point. Damage to roofing and windows is likely, and again, power outages that could last days to weeks. Category 4, and hopefully we don't have to deal with that here in the central part of the state. Many homes suffer major damage. Trees and power poles snapped, some homes just completely destroyed. And when you get to that Category 5 status, extensive to catastrophic damage will occur around the center of that storm. And you will see complete neighborhoods wiped out and power outages that do last for weeks. Now, I give power crews in Southwest Florida huge props. With Ian, they got power restored to most communities within a fairly quick fashion. But again, it can last for weeks, as we know here. Tropical tornadoes, well, these are mostly associated with thunderstorms that shoot out and around in those outer bands you hear about. They occur as the system moves on shore. The friction of that storm moving on land helps to create the tornadoes. Most tornadoes are typically pretty weak and short-lived. And if you're looking at the storm, you'll hear us talk about the front right quadrant. If we ever have a storm that is on the west coast coming in, the front right quadrant is going to be up over us. And that's when we get really concerned about tornado potential. So if you ever see a storm coming up the west side and moving almost due north, we are going to be in that front right quadrant if it's close enough to the coast. I mentioned most of these tornadoes are usually on the weak side. EF0, 49% is that's a pretty high percentage. So they're all fairly weak, but they're moving very, very fast at up to 60 to 70 miles per hour, so they're hard to prepare for. That's why at that point you should already be in your safe place. I did get some pictures from both Ian and Nicole. I just wanted to share some images to show you what we can see. I believe most of these are going to be from Ian. Flagler Beach Pier took a battering in Matthew back in 2017, and then took a really good hit from Ian, and then Nicole just chopped it off at the end, and they're still looking at repairing that, and it looks like they're going to build a new pier that is going to be some cement pylons and metal that will last through some of these higher end storms. Daytona Beach, one of our viewers, Cindy, sent this picture as the pool deck was collapsing there at Daytona Beach. My image that will forever be ingrained in my mind was waking up to alerts for flash flood emergencies, which are a very, very rare occurrence. But we had flash flooding occurring so quickly. The water was coming up and water rescues were going on left and right. And I remember once we got daylight and we turned our camera around, we looked at Lake Eola in downtown Orlando, and for the first time in its recorded history, it was flowing out and well over its banks, closing roads around downtown. And I had never seen that before. And to go on air with that kind of information was scary, because I knew that this is just downtown. There are other bodies of water that are floating even higher. Claremont, I mean, we go out west, and we had some damage with the wind. Oviedo, street flooding. There's a car sitting in the water. Notice the Sanford area, water that is definitely making itself known here outside of the banks of any kind of nearby river. I mentioned the rescues going on, and this is why, you know, when it comes to these events, we want you to stay safe. We want you to be in a safe place. And if you're asked to evacuate, do so. These folks weren't asked to evacuate. This was in Orlando. You wouldn't think they need to evacuate. But, you know, our rescue crews, they're out there putting their lives at rest in danger to help folks. And the thing that really ticks me off is when people say they won't evacuate, even though these storms come in and they are told, hey, you need to evacuate, because what they're doing is they're putting, it's selfish, they're putting other lives at risk if they get stuck. And I know that during Matthew, people along the East Coast were calling for help. The intercoastal, the causeways were closed, and people were calling for help, even though they were told they had to evacuate. People were stubborn and stayed, and emergency crews had to say, we can't get to you. So you're going to have to fend for yourself. And I had to throw in a picture from Deltona. We had a few. You guys had some big trees down, some fence damage as well. All right, so as I kind of wind things down here, one of the things I wanted to mention that you can do at any point is, obviously you want to get yourself prepared, but help your neighbors. We have a lot of folks moving in that are new, and they don't know what to do. And some of them might be very, very nervous. So you can help them prepare by collecting supplies, telling them what to put in the kit, and we're going to get some information on a kit here coming up. But make sure that they're ready before, during, and check in with them after. Help them evacuate if they need to. If somebody is living in an area that floods pretty easily, maybe they should evacuate. If they don't feel comfortable being at home, the shelters open up. That is a place to go and stay safe with people that are there to comfort you. And help them after the storm. Once it's safe, assist or comfort them with any losses. I show this every year. I'll go quickly through these. What I need you to do, though, is to avoid the hype when it comes to storms. I told you that we do it in a very calm fashion. Don't be scared, be prepared. Because, and I'm not picking on any particular person, but this was pretty outrageous. If you haven't heard this one back, this was during Irma. Governor Scott at the time said, "This is an unbelievably massive, destructive storm. It's a killer. You will not survive all this storm surge." He went on to say Irma is bigger, faster, and stronger than Hurricane Andrew. It was not in the end, by the way. This storm will be nothing like the state has ever seen. Well, he was completely wrong. Irma did have a huge impact, but he scared the bejesus out of people. And that's not what you need to be doing. And then there's Shepard Smith, who at the time was a Fox anchor, who said, "This moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead." And, you know, he inflicts these words. He pushes the words, "You are dead." And he says, all of you, because you can't survive it. It's not possible unless you're very, very lucky. And your kids die, too. What do you think a parent is going to... Your kids die. Goes on to say, Smith spoke with a Floridian who didn't want to leave her home. "I'll ask her why she's staying and if she expects us to cover her funeral." Disgusting. And I would tell it to his face if I saw him. You're disgusting with this kind of comment. And I digress, but avoid the hype. We have some folks here in town, and I'm not going to call any names or any stations. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but we do have some folks here who really get panicky and scare everybody, and that's not what we need to do as TV meteorologists. So in my concluding thoughts here, all of us as meteorologists should be aware of a growing population that includes people from all over the world. Sounds like what I said last year, because it's true. I think 1,000 people a week are moving into Orange County alone. I'm not sure about Volusia and Seminole County, but I know that the population here in Deltona has been growing very quickly. Yeah, we should all prepare for tropical and severe weather. It only takes one storm to cause issues. Don't get wrapped up in the hype of the local media and social media. Social media is one of the worst things that you could see when it comes to storm coverage and people who think they know what they're talking about. But again, don't be scared. Be prepared. And that's what you're going to hear us saying all season long. And I love showing this every year, too, because I think, you know, we should do that. Just turn all of our fans and steer them all away. Thank you. And by the way, I do want to get a selfie like I did last year. Really quick. I don't know if I got everybody. Yep, I got everybody. All right.
Do you have any questions for Brian? I know. I'm going to ask you if you're single.
No. Sorry, Betsy. I asked if he had any questions when he walked in.
Brian, thank you so much, Brian. You've always bring such, oh.
You made a comment earlier in your presentation where you said that the storm has to be plus or minus 5 degrees from the equator. Can you explain why that's true?
Well, the added spin of the Earth, when you get down around the equator, it doesn't allow that spin to go up. And so it kind of, yes, and so we have to stay north of the line, because when you get to the equator and the Coriolis effect starts to slow around the equator there, where things start evening out a little bit, it's not allowing the spin to continue to lift up through the atmosphere. So you go about 5 degrees north, and on the southern hemisphere about 5 degrees south, and you stay outside of that line, and you're going to get the opportunity for storms to grow and move with the jet stream, which is a river of wind aloft that helps to carry the storm systems around the earth, or around the oceans.
Thank you again, Brian. Our next speaker, I'm pretty sure probably some of you driving down Deltona Boulevard see his name in his beautiful building, is Mr. Mel Himes, and he is an insurance agent. And Mr. Himes will offer general advice on what residents need to do to make sure their insurance needs are up to date ahead of the storm. I'm not an insurance broker, but I know that there are things that you need to make sure you have before a certain time of the hurricane season, and he's going to bring you information on that. Mel? And thank you for being here, Mel.
Well, thank you for inviting me again. I appreciate it. And I've been in Deltona since 1974. I think it shows I've been around for all of the hurricanes, Brian, that have come through here, okay, every one, okay. But thank you for this time. I was a little disappointed. The guards weren't out in the foyer to keep anybody from bringing in any tomatoes or rotten eggs to throw at an insurance guy, okay? You know, but I'm grateful to be at the front of the program so I can leave immediately after, all right? And I know I'm the guy you love to hate, but your insurance agent is not the message, they're just the messenger. And I'm sure you have seen on all of the networks the changes that are happening in our insurance industry here in the state of Florida, dealing with our property insurance. Many of you, I'm sure, own your home. You have it insured, just like with your car insurance and your health insurance and different things of that nature. But the property insurance marketplace right now in the state of Florida is extremely volatile. And insurance companies that have been here for years, they are leaving the state of Florida, not simply because it's difficult to do business in, but simply because we're kind of like Texas, where most of them left a couple of years ago. The Midwest is facing some of the exact same things we're dealing with. Theirs is tornadoes, as opposed to the hurricanes that we have to deal with. And wind and hail losses for property is becoming a major issue for everyone that lives in these particular areas and states. So I'm going to try to give you a couple of ideas on your own personal homeowner's insurance before June 1st, right? Before June 1st. The first thing you need to do is to pull out your policy, which most of you probably cannot find. It will be in the junk drawer in the laundry room up underneath all those batteries, okay? But you need to pull it out, and you need to look at the value that your house is insured for. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that since 1974, me moving here, the price of homes has skyrocketed here in the Deltona area. And the cost of building has literally doubled, as well as labor cost. So the house that you may have bought several years ago for $200,000 may be valued, just to replace it in today's building market, $400,000. Well, if it's only insured for $200,000 and you have a claim and the adjuster comes out and he values your house to rebuild would cost $400,000, he's going to tell you, well, you've been self-insuring for half the value of your home. If it's valued to replace for $400,000 and you're only carrying $200,000, then this roof that's going to cost you $20,000 to repair, we're only going to pay $10,000 on it because you're insuring the other half. And from that $10,000 that they may give you, they're going to take your deductible off. So the first thing you need to do is to be sure that your home is insured properly for the replacement cost. Now, I mentioned I moved here in 1974. Well, all those houses that Mackle brothers built in the 60s and early 70s, I mean, 900 square foot homes, you think that they can be rebuilt for $100,000 today? You're wrong, because I own several of them and had them as rentals. And I am shocked when I get an email from all of these real estate agents who think I still own them, and they want to put it on the market for me for, guess what, $350,000. And I'm sitting here saying an 800 square foot home, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, kitchen, living room, dining room combined, no carport, okay, and a small lot. My goodness, I should have held on to them instead of selling them back when I did for 70 grand, but I only bought them for 40. So you need to check the replacement cost on your homeowner's insurance policy. That's the very first thing you need to do. Second, you need to understand your wind and hail deductible. This is the most confusing thing about property insurance, because you'll look at your policy and you'll say, Oh, I've only got a $500 deductible. So if I have a fire or a theft or somebody vandalizes my home, it's only going to cost me $500. And if the wind blows my roof off, it's only going to cost me $500. Bzzz, you're wrong. You can go to the end of the line. The majority of homeowners policies in Florida have 2 deductibles. That $500 deductible is there for what's called all other perils. That is your fire, your lightning, your sinkhole, your theft, your vandalism, smoke damage. All of that stuff, if it occurs, will only cost you $500 out of your pocket as a deductible. But your wind and hail coverage has a separate deductible. Now, you're going to say, well, why'd the insurance companies do that? Well, insurance companies didn't do it. The Department of Insurance did it after Andrew. Andrew was so devastating in South Florida that several of the major insurers back in the early 90s told the Department of Insurance, we're walking. We're leaving the state of Florida unless you do something to help us to kind of reduce the cost that we have to pay for all of this wind damage. So the Department of Insurance, all of those guys who never sold an insurance policy, never had anything to do with insurance, but felt like they understood it, wrote that form, that policy form, that deductible form for wind and hail. And it is a percentage deductible. Now, in some places like Orlando, it only may be 1%. But I've got places that were insured on Pine Island, 15% wind and hail deductible, because they're on a barrier island, okay? And your deductible, sitting here in Volusia County, although we are inland, you're still in a coastal county, just like Pensacola, Escambia County, another large county, Hillsborough, Duval. You start looking at our state and you'll see how many of these large counties, even though you may live in Bratt, Florida, which is in Escambia County, on the Florida-Alabama line, okay, that's a coastal county, even though they're 60 miles inland, and we sit 40 miles inland from Daytona. So your wind and hail deductible may be 5%. And that's not on the claim. That's on the amount of the insurance you have your house insured for. So you have a $400,000 home, and you have a roof that blows off, and you think your deductible is only $500? Nope. It is 5% of the $400,000 that you have it insured for. Now, I've just got a college degree, and I've just been doing insurance for only 50 years. So I don't know a whole lot, but 5% times 400,000, you're smart. You're a meteorologist. What's 5% of $400,000? Look at there. Look at how quick he is. $20,000. But your roof may only cost you $18,000. So guess what? You're not going to get one single solitary dime from State Farm or anybody else, because your deductible is $20,000 and the roof is only $18,000. Check your wind and hail deductible. Now, there are still a few policies that are hanging around, like mine was last year when my roof blew off, okay, that I still had a flat deductible, but it was very, very high. But those days are going to be gone, gone, gone in the months ahead. So you need to double check the value that your house is insured for, and then double check what your deductible is, so that you know ahead of time, not after the storm hits and you ain't got no money, okay, to pay that deductible, and you're going to cry, cry, cry. You need to prepare for that financially, not just in the safety side of it, but also to be sure that you have enough dollars and cents in savings or available to take care of that deductible. The third thing is, well, what happens when I do have a claim? Here's one thing you don't do. Yes, I'm with ABC Roofing Company, and we're just walking the streets, just offering a free service to all of these homeowners in case you have some roof damage. Would you mind if we get up on your roof and look and see if we can help you? And if it does need to be replaced, we can get it for you for free. No money out of your pocket. You'd be surprised that the day before, our legislative body made some changes here just a couple of weeks ago. A major law firm, the largest law firm in the world, filed 25,000 lawsuits in Tallahassee against insurance companies and homeowners because those homeowners signed what's called an assignment of benefits, an AOB. And that assignment of benefits gives that insurance company no rights, gives you as a homeowner no rights. The roofing company, the general contractor, and the attorney, they act as your spokesperson. And because the insurance company now is notified that a new roof was put on your house, and they never sent out an adjuster, never got a call from you, the insured, knew nothing about it, couldn't prove if the roof needed to be repaired or replaced, now all of a sudden they're denying this claim. And if they did go out, like my second son, Jonathan, his wife signed some of those forms, and they got an estimate of $40,000. Well, we had one of our insureds, one of our roofers, go out. He could do the whole job, replace the whole roof for $15,000. Fortunately enough, he was able to get out of those signed agreements, and that roofer put on his new roof for $15,000 instead of that roofing company charging an insurance company, Avatar Insurance, $40,000 to do the job. And you say, well, what did they charge for? Well, they charged for a porta potty to be out there for 2 days. They charged for plywood to be put down on the driveway so that the dumpster that they would bring in would not leave any dark marks on the concrete. They charge for replacing soffit, which is the metal part up underneath your roof. Not the drip edge, okay, or the fascia, but the soffit. They also noticed that there may have been some damage to the stucco on their side of the building, so they were going to touch that up. As it went on and on and on. Things that didn't need to be done because of storm damage to a roof. So be careful what you do when you do have a claim. The first thing to do is call your insurance agent or the insurance company and allow them to step in and handle your claim. Then last but not least, you may look at your premium as it comes up, and you're going to say, Catherine, you here? Just like Catherine said, her husband has asked her to shop around, and I can tell she's the boss in her family because she said, no way, I am not doing this, okay? Look, premiums are going up, but so is everything else. So is everything else. But it's not because insurance companies want more of your money. Insurance companies need to make money to be able to stay in business. And they're not just not paying for claims that happened last year, but they're still paying for Michael in the Panhandle, a Cat 5 that destroyed literally everything there in Mexico Beach. They're also still paying for claims in Houston, Texas, in Harris County. They're paying for claims for a tornado in Oklahoma City. They're paying for the stuff that just happened in Mississippi, around Tupelo, and all up in that area, tornadoes. Your insurance premium that you pay here in Florida doesn't stay here. It goes to all the states where those insurance companies do business. And insurance companies' costs have gone up too. Do you know that the Department of Insurance requires every insurance company to have 3 times in investment liquidity cash as to the amount of premium they collect in the state? Now again, I only have a college degree, only been doing this for 50 years. So if an insurance company has $1 billion worth of premium coming in, 3 times $1 billion is how much? $3 billion. So somewhere along the line, they have to have $3 billion worth of investments and liquidity to be able to take care of a catastrophic loss that may happen only here in the state of Florida. And New York and Florida are the two most regulated states when it comes to insurance. And insurance companies just can't just raise their rates like this. They've got to provide proof and documentation as to why they need an insurance premium increase. It's not because they want to pay their employees or the president anymore. They want to be able to maintain their business just like any other business. But the way that they do it is through our premiums and being solvent so they can pay your claim like they paid my claim, okay? So that's it in a nutshell. The good news, the bad news, and the ugly. So I can take a few questions, but I won't take any rotten tomatoes or eggs. Questions?
Now, when your insurance is raised, does that take care of the repair that your insurance company will pay to repair it for home? Because I got a exorbitant rate on my insurance, and I didn't think to go and look and see what the house is worth and all that, but say I did have damage and with the increase in my premium, would that automatically take care of?
No, ma'am.
Regardless of
No, ma'am. What they've done is they've taken the value of your home, okay, and based on the rate for, and they look at every home individually, the characteristics, okay? So your house may have been built in 1985 and it may be concrete block, as opposed to someone else's that was built maybe in 1990, but it's frame, okay? So your house, that rate is based on the characteristics of your home. And the premium may have gone up, but the value did not go up. Whatever that insured value is, your new premium, that's what they would charge based on that insured value. Now, you can raise the values, but again, the minute you do that, what's going to happen to the premium? It's going to go up. But a couple of things. Most of us can afford more than a $500 deductible. Raise your deductibles. Okay, although I'm in the business to sell insurance, I mean, I cringe when I have folks call me and they still have a $500 deductible and they're paying such a high premium. My recommendation is, well, what's your deductible on your health insurance? Well, I've got Obamacare. Well, your deductible is $5,210. So why don't you have a $5,210 deductible on your homeowner's insurance? If you can afford it on your health insurance, then why can't you do, what's your deductible on your car insurance? Well, I've got a $1,000 deductible comp and collision, but you only have a $500 deductible on your homeowners? When was the last time you had a claim on your car insurance? Well, I never have. When was the last time you had a claim on your homeowners? Well, I never have. Well, so you've been paying that kind of a premium to these insurance companies all this time and you've never filed a claim. Go to a higher deductible, lower your premium.
But that hurricane deductible is higher.
Yes, and it's a percentage. Yes. And it is a percentage, and you've got to be careful there, because if you don't have that kind of cash stacked away, then now FEMA, when Michael hit in the Panhandle, and when we had Ian and Nicole, we actually had the FEMA office here, did we not? And they'll come in, and there are certain programs that are available. I've got some nonprofits to where they actually got a grant. They didn't have to pay it back. Other businesses, they got loans, a low-interest loan. And even here for our homeowners, even during the flooding, we had FEMA here, and they provided needed services for our residents here in Deltona. So for some of those things, there is some other programs that are available.
Yeah, but you have to be very poor.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. You have to fill out all the paperwork, and you have to let everything be known. But I'm sitting here telling you, I know of businesses and individuals you know, not that they're billionaires. I think we only have one billionaire here in Deltona. That's you, isn't it? But anyway, you know, there are certain avenues that can be. That's correct. That's correct. If you've got collectible insurance, then that right there is going to be your first level. But if it's not adequate, then you can come back through some of those programs and receive some additional funding. Yes, sir. He was first.
I have, unfortunately, I'm one of the individuals, I'm one of the unfortunate few that my insurance company has decided that I'm no longer in their risk profile, and they don't have that 3 times deductible that you were talking about in our letting us go. We're currently working through, again, I've had them for 10 years, paid all my premiums, been faithful, never had a claim, and unfortunately, this last go around, we got hit twice, one with each storm. So I'm currently in transition in switching or looking for an insurance company, but since the claim is still open, construction is still going on, nobody will even look at or touch us, and obviously we're coming into hurricane season again. For somebody like me who's kind of stuck in that limbo spot, you know, our house is livable now. We had to move out for 2.5 months, but we're in it now. It's still under construction. What do you suggest when looking for a new provider, and what steps should we take? You know, obviously our company's no longer going to insure, so they're not helpful. But what do you kind of do when you're stuck in the middle and looking, but nobody can do anything until claims are closed and that down period?
Yeah. Gets really, really tough, and it aggravates and frustrates agents as well. A lot of companies will not take someone who has filed an AOB, an assignment of benefit. They say, hold it, if you're going to sue an insurance company, you're not even going to let us know, then we don't want to have a partnership with you. But it's the same with any doctor who you sue for malpractice. He ain't going to take you back as a patient, okay? What we ask is this, and I just did this, Brian, I've got, we insure a lot of churches all across the entire country. We're real big in nonprofits. So in Fort Myers, I have a church down there, lost its roof. $103,000 claim that's still opened. The company that they were insured with that paid all the money and everything, they're leaving the state. All right, so now I've got to find them coverage, which I have by May 31st. But how I did it was this. They had the signed contracts for the roof, but part of the issue is please don't get mad at me, is our building departments and the bureaucracy within city government to issue a stinking permit, okay? Am I hitting you guys? Okay. But it's months and months and months, and the GCs, they've got half the money for the down payment, but they can't get the permit to put the roof on, but yet their insurance policy is lapsing, and they've got a mortgage, and the bank is screaming at them, you got to have insurance. So what we try to do is ask, get us copies of the signed contracts so that we can take and present that to the insurance company that we're approaching to go ahead and insure you, knowing that at some point in time, when the building department issues the permit and the GC can get those shingles in because of a supply chain problem, okay, that it'll be done. Now, guess what? You're not going to have coverage on any existing damage. So if the roof's not on and we get another hurricane, you're SOL, okay? You're going to have to eat it yourself because you don't have a new roof, all right? And your new insurance company is not going to pay for any damage because it's a pre-existing problem, all right? But at least you'd have coverage for all your other perils. And I try to remind people of this. When does hurricane season start? And when does it end? Well, you're only paying for hurricane coverage during that short period of time. But when can a fire start? 365 days a year, right? When can somebody break into your house or vandalize it or a sinkhole, okay? Those coverages are 365 days a year as opposed to some of the storms, okay? So you can do some storm preparedness, which these guys are going to talk about, that maybe will help to keep any water intrusion or wind or things like that to further damage your house to make it unlivable. Does that help? Yes. We can.
I'll get his card. Yeah.
We can talk to citizens. You know, that's the largest carrier right now in Florida, and that's probably going to be the only place we can get you. But you know, and they're not expensive. They're some of the least expensive policies right now in the state. I hate to say it, but
I don't know how. Well, I guess I will throw one. But I don't know how Florida Family.
Oh, they're canceling me.
I don't know how
they paid me.
State when their name is Florida.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I got cards. Yes, ma'am.
What happens when what happens when it might have been pre-existing, but maybe the floodings that happened helped escalate and show there was an issue with foundation?
Okay. You can have you called a construction company that deals strictly in foundations to come out and evaluate your issue?
Yes.
Okay. Have they given you an actual report as to what the issue is and
Yes.
how they can fix it? Okay. Then you need to go ahead and call your insurance company and get the adjuster out there. Give them that report that you've already paid for. And
They won't. They already cut me off at the pass and said they won't even touch it.
all right. There are two types of sinkhole coverage. One is true sinkhole. The other is catastrophic ground movement. So first thing you need to look at is what kind of coverage you have, okay? Because if it's catastrophic ground movement and it's indicating that it's a sinkhole, you more than likely will not have coverage, okay? And sometimes that occurs not because of the amount of water, but because of the dryness. And I think Brian can tell you there have been times we've had so much drought that the sand, actually, we call it sugar sand, if you've been here long enough in Florida, you know, it starts to move. And I've had clients where their house backs up to a retention area. Well, it's bone dry. And the sand, the ground starts moving. Well, that's not a sinkhole. That's called catastrophic ground movement, okay? So look at your policy. If you want us to look at, we do this all the time for free. And we'll be happy to, you know. And I've got some packets back there on the table with some information in here that would be of some help to you, okay? Well, thank you for not throwing any tomatoes or rotten eggs at me. I greatly appreciate it. The next time I'm invited, I'm going to bring me some funny-looking, cute shoes.
Thank you, Mel, so much. You really gave a lot of information that some of us probably here didn't even know about. With all these changes going on with the insurances. So the plastic bags, little bags in the back, those are his. So anybody wants information, take a plastic bag with you, call him. He's on Deltona Boulevard. So the next speaker we have is Lieutenant Ryan Mills from Volusia Sheriff's Office, and he's going to talk to you about how to keep yourself safe before, during, and after the hurricane.
Good evening, everybody. The common theme you're going to hear here from everybody that speaks is preparedness. Be prepared. Get all your stuff in line before the storm starts. You don't want to be the person that kind of said, oh, it's going to pass, and then you're going to be out there in the upcoming hours trying to find the supplies you need. That's not the time to go out. As the storm starts to approach, it's going to get dangerous. The winds are going to get high. Trees are going to start falling. Power lines are going to start going down. You want to make sure you have everything you need in your house, the way you can be sitting in your house, watching the news, waiting for the information for the storm to roll through. We have so many times where people are out and about and they're getting caught up in unexpected flooding that's happening when the storm's approaching and there's power lines going down. And until their power company gets there, we can't do anything to help them get out of those situations. It's just a dangerous situation. We had an instance during these last storms where there's a gentleman that he didn't prepare himself to get home in time. He was out driving around in the storms. It was up in the north end of DeLeon Springs. He was driving down the road. The power was out. There was no lights. And he ran into a tree. and his car got stuck under the tree, and we couldn't get to him to help him because he needed to be home. He needed to not be in the storm. So during the storm last year, we had an instance where during the storm, when the winds are coming through, we were still out and about working because the winds hadn't reached a high enough speed to where we had to be grounded. We had to be on lockdown ourselves. But he was outside, and during the storm, his pool started to flood, and he decided he was going to try to drain some of that water when he was during the storm. And he lived on a canal, and he actually fell in the canal and drowned and passed away. These are all things you need to think about. It's not worth it to be out there during the storm doing things. When you live in these areas that are prone to flooding and things like that, they're going to tell you to evacuate. You don't normally get forced to evacuate, but it's highly recommended. But at the end of the day, it's your choice. Even in the areas where you're not told to evacuate, there's a chance that during the storm, when everything starts rolling through, we're not going to be able to come out and help you. Like I said, when the winds reach a certain height, your first responders aren't going to be able to come out and assist you and help you out when you're having potentially a life-saving emergency at your home, whether it be power, whether it be flooding, different things like that. After the storm, it's still very, very dangerous. A lot of times, people will feel cooped up in their house, and we'll have curfews in place, and people will want to get out and about and see the damage and things like that. The curfews are in place for a reason. You want to make sure that you abide by the curfews after the storm, especially, and they're typically only for a day, maybe 2 days. And the reason for that, though, is for your safety, to make sure there's not a bunch of down trees, there's not a bunch of down power lines, there's not a bunch of flooding where you could potentially get stuck in it and you get injured or you injure somebody else, or it's just a bad situation. We have high water vehicles where after the storm, these last times, we did a lot of high water rescues where people were stuck in their homes because the flooding kept going as the storm was over. And that just goes back to the evacuation point. If you're in one of those areas that you're being told to evacuate, please make sure you get out. And to touch on a couple other things, everybody wants to be as comfortable as possible during the storms. So you want to make sure you get all your supplies beforehand. Like I said, don't rush out when the storm's approaching to try to get your supplies. Don't get enough supplies to last you through the storm. Don't eat all your supplies and everything while the storm's rolling through. Because then everybody wants to get out and try to find an open restaurant or store right after the storm passes, and you don't want to be caught up in that. Make sure you ration it out. Make sure you have enough to last you. You want to be comfortable. A lot of people are going to go out and get generators. Many of you probably already have generators. We want to make sure you use them in a well-ventilated area. You want to make sure they're secure because, unfortunately, people do go around stealing generators. In years past, we've had people where they had their generator out front of their house and it was running, they're hearing the motor, oh, I'm good to go. All of a sudden, the power cuts out in their house. They go out there and they find like a push lawnmower that's running in their driveway. Somebody took their generator, replaced it with a lawnmower so they could continue to hear that motor, so it makes the people believe that it's still out there running. You want to make sure you prepare. Try to put it in a secure area that's ventilated. If you can, try to strap it down with some chains and a padlock, things like that. If you're able to put it behind your house in your fenced-in area, best thing to do. If it's not visible, everybody's going to be running generators. You're going to hear it echoing off of houses. But if it's not visible, it's harder for people to find it and try to take it. So you want to make sure you're secure in that manner. You want to make sure your house is secure, so that way you all are safe. You don't have to worry about anybody coming and try to take stuff from you. Make sure people know you're there. As far as the generator being out in ventilated areas, they make little like huts you can put on the generators to help protect them from the elements and blowing the breeze and things like that, so that way your generator doesn't get damaged. Just prepare. That's like I said, the prime thing here is prepare leading up to it, so that way you're prepared during and you're prepared after. You want to be as safe as possible, and I can't stress that enough. We will always be there as long as it's safe for us to do so, as well as the other first responders will always be there to assist. A lot of times will put our lives in danger at times where it's probably more of a danger than what it should be to try to help out everybody else. We're going to be there as much as we can. It's really, my portion of this is just very basic. Just be safe. Follow the guidelines, listen to the news, and just take care of yourself and your friends and your family, and everybody wants to make it through and not be harmed. So that's really the main thing I can stress upon here. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, so what happens if I in the trailers, do I have to evacuate too in the trailers?
In the trailers, a lot of times you just need to listen to advisements. The trailers are obviously more susceptible to damage a lot of the times.
Yeah.
You just got to listen to the wind advisories. You got to listen to the news. The news will tell you if you're in a certain area, if you live in a manufactured home, if you do this, you do that. They'll give you guidance for sure. So at a lot of times when the storm's leading up to it, if it's in a highly susceptible area for damage, or like it could be a trailer park or something like that, a lot of times the deputies will come and knock on your door and be like, hey, you need to know this could happen. We're advising you to get out. A lot of the times that's a area where they advise you to evacuate.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Zen. So our next speaker is going to be one of the city's employee, actually new employee, David Meyer. Did I say right? You did. Okay. He's our new City of Deltona Building Services, Mel. So things are going to get better, okay? And with him is Danny. He's also from Code Compliance.
Thank you. As it was stated, my name is David Meyer. I am the new building official, and I am here with Danny Ron. He is the manager of Code Compliance. We have some preparedness things that you're going to hear these over and over, and I apologize for the repetition, but we'll cover these things because I think there's some good information. Can we get the next slide? There we go. In preparedness. Being prepared, you've heard so many times as it comes about, but there's things you can do in advance. You can walk your property and check for tree limbs that grow close to the house, because when the winds blow up, that tree may look like it's 3 feet away or so, but when the wind starts to blow it around, that's when you can get roof damage. Knowing where the shelters are located and what the requirements they may have for personal items, you may need sleeping bags, pillows, and what their requirements are if you have pets, that sort of thing. Having your kit ready, there's plenty of information that's back there, but I'll run through the list of things that we have because there's some that you might think, oh, that was a good idea. A first aid kit, flashlights, batteries, a battery-powered radio, a manual can opener, toiletries, waterproof shin-high boots. That's a really important one because when there's floodwaters around, you really shouldn't be walking through that. There's unpleasant things that can be in that water. Gloves, fire extinguisher, a whistle. I hope it never happens, but if you get trapped, nobody knows you're in there, you can blow that whistle because there's nothing worse. You're in there, you can't do anything. You see the truck going down the street, you blow that whistle, keep making noise. You're going to need a wrench or pliers. You may need to shut off your utilities. You may need to make little minor repairs. Cell phone chargers, the battery type, or the one that goes in your car is good. But here's some good ones. Board games, cards, puzzles, rakes, and trash bags. You're going to need to have these supplies on hand because after the storm is not the time to run down to the store to go get the items that you need. So having those on hand. Important documents like your insurance policy, cash, because retailers can often take cards when there's no power, your pet vaccination records. A lot of times you're going to have that available if you're going to go to a shelter. Your health insurance documents and related cards. A great place to store these items is in a box or a bag that you put in the dishwasher. Your dishwasher is waterproof, so if you get a flood, they stay safe. Next slide. Securing your home. This is what you would do just before, when you get the hint that, hey, there's a couple of days coming out, that's when you want to deploy your opening protectives. If you plan to use plywood, get it well in advance. We all know what happens to the plywood supply with a week before this happens, but go ahead and cut it and have the fasteners ready to put in. And oftentimes, as you know, it's double repeating myself, it's not available if you wait too long when a storm is anticipated. Dan, if you want to take the next slide.
Sure. One of the biggest things we see during just before the storm is everybody's trying to trim those branches, and this is the time now. We're in the month of, we're about to hit month of June, July, or let's do this early, because that power right there does not get picked up right away, and it's not properly bundled. It's not properly contained in a trash can or in the bin, so it will be a chargeable pickup. We do work with FEMA after the hurricanes, and that stuff gets picked up then. But before the storms, definitely get this done early. You can work with Waste Pro or our department with the solid waste department to get that picked up. But if you wait till the last minute, Waste Pro is out there trying to get the regular trash. They might not have time to pick up those big piles of tree debris that gets taken care of. So the best time to do it, this is the time now. Oh, there's your file.
Insurance, I think, was already spoken about pretty well, and I don't think I can add anything that was already saying, but we'll move on to the next slide. Power outages. Portable generators is a common thing, but this is the time to decide what items in and around your home are going to need temporary power during an outage. I can't stress enough the safety of properly using a generator. Follow the precautions that come with that, read the instructions, don't run them inside. But it's also important to consider what you're going to be using. So, for example, some of the items that you may not think of, if you have a well, your well needs power, you won't have water. If your septic system has a lift station, you don't have septic, you need to consider those. Your refrigerator, freezer, internet, television, those items that are important. Once you decide what will need the temporary power, you need to figure out what the wattage requirements of those items are and then purchase the right size generator. You get that little tiny thing, and you try to run all those items and it's not going to work. So having that plan in advance is a great idea. If you have the means to do it, I highly recommend having a professional, licensed electrician install a generator connection system for your house. They can put that in. It makes it super safe. You're not running extension cords, and it looks like Christmas Vacation with all the extension cords plugged in. We all know what that's like. You really do. You want to avoid that. So if you can get an electrician to help you do that, keeps you safe, you make sure you're working, and you're prepared.
Food and water, I think we've covered this a couple of times, and that table that's back there, a perfect example of some of the items that you should have to prepare for a hurricane. The size of the family that's living in the house, that's actually very important. If it's just one or two people, you might not need as much supplies as if a big family. Have a big family at home, I have to pretty much stock up the refrigerators. One example, I was here for Charlie back in 2004. I lost power for 3 weeks. But guess what? My freezer was packed. We ate great for the next 3 days after the hurricane. All the meat was gone. I even fed the neighbors because I had to give it away because, we lost power for such a long period of time. But yeah, depending on the family size is how much stuff you should have. Always be ready. Don't eat it all at once. Save some of that stuff for afterward because guess what? Everybody's trying to go out to the stores after the storms and trying to buy, and most of the supplies will be gone. And it might take a couple of days before the stores get replenished with those kind of items. Very important, shelter was mentioned. We do provide shelters in the area. Just before the storms, Volusia County will send out information where these shelters will be located at. The fire department will give us some of the information also. Here in City of Deltona, we'll get that information and relay it out to the residents of the city. We will have emergency phone numbers, and we will set up an emergency operations center here in City Hall, that if y'all do have questions, we'll have that information to provide that out to you. Medicine is huge. Make sure you have enough supply of medicine for the people that do need that. Shot records, pets, very important. You know, there's a state law, you cannot abandon any pets, any location at home. We've had this happen in pretty much every hurricane, and we definitely address that appropriately to those violators. Outdoor furniture and toys. I do code compliance for the city. A couple of days coming to the, when the hurricanes, we notify the hurricanes coming, we kind of back off with the enforcement, but guess what? We out on the roads addressing out stuff that's out there, that's visible. We're more than welcome to receive the complaints. Hey, my neighbor's got this items in the back. We can't really see it from the front, and we'll go out there and address it. We want to make sure all items are secured. That way it doesn't become projectiles out there during the storm. We just don't know the wind's velocity, and stuff can change. Prime example, Charlie back in the day, that's after being here 1 year. I moved down here in 2003, the year before Charlie. This ain't gonna be that bad. Charlie did some damage. I saw stuff flying all over the place. So yes, we gotta be careful on that. What was that?
Not your car?
No, that's not my car. No, that's not my car. Sandbags. The city will have locations where they'll be issuing sandbags. If it's an assistance needed to fill these bags, they'll have the employees out there. We have 2 locations. Not sure if sometimes they have both open, sometimes they'll have one. But that information will be out there for the public shortly before the days coming of the hurricane, or any type of storm that with issues with water, flooding.
During the storm, keep informed on the storm status by news or radio. Stay indoors with all windows completely closed and locked. That's a pretty important part. There's the old wives' tales of, oh, crack the window a little bit. Don't do that. Tape on the windows, I don't think you're going to get much out of that. But staying inside, when you experience high winds, go to the centermost location of the house and close the interior doors and stay low to the floor. When debris starts flying, that's what can happen. So being inside, I wouldn't even say it's a bad idea to bathtub with a mattress over you if it gets to that point. Protect yourself, stay inside. The more you have around you, the less you have a chance of getting hit with the debris. Resist the temptation to peek outside. That's one of the things that you see a bunch, let me see what's happening. You go and peek out, and here comes the trash can, a tree limb that got left outside, and bam, now you have a whole nother problem. After the storm. This is another pretty big one. Check on your family members and your pets. Walk around inside and outside to assess if any damage was sustained. Resist the temptation to drive around the neighborhood and see the damage. We all want to see what happened. We all want to know what it is, but that can be a very dangerous time. Tree lines, power lines are down. Trees are down. With no power, there's no traffic lights. Leave the roads clear for emergency responders to get out and do what they need to do. Beginning the cleanup process. This is another really important part. I don't know the statistics, but I'm going to say I believe more people get injured from improper use of generators, chainsaws, ladders. You go buy that brand new Binford 4400 chainsaw, but you didn't read the installation or the instructions on how to properly use it. You don't have safety glasses. Drop that chainsaw. That storm was the least of your problems. So it's being safe. And a lot of this is common sense, but it's the thing that sometimes hearing the words can really make a difference. The most important thing that I can't stress enough, if you hire someone to do work on your house, check their credentials, make sure they're licensed. Avoid the guys that are knocking on the door, hey, I can do this, I can take care of that. There's so many horror stories of people that have lost the cash, the money, their life savings, everything to a scam artist, and now they have a bigger problem from in there again. So please check your contractors.
All I want to add is, if you have any questions on contractors, call the city of Deltona. Call us, and we can give you that information. We can actually check for you if that person has their license and registered with the county, with Volusia. That way they can do work here in the city. And make sure if they start doing the work, they should have paperwork showing City of Deltona inspection card and a permit card, attached to that.
One of the sites that you mentioned, the contractor thing, I believe Volusia does have the contractor licensing on their website, but the state has myfloridalicense.com. Go onto the state, look at that. One of the other ones is called sunbiz.org. That's SUNBIZ. You can run the company name. That will give you who the responsible party is. It'll give you at least a clue that you're working with a legitimate contractor. Sunbiz.
Repeat the link. Repeat the
The
link.
URLs that you gave is sunbiz.org.
Sunbiz.org. It's SUNBIZ.
And the other one from the state?
.org, and the other one from the DBPR is myfloridalicense.com. Got it? Does anybody have any questions?
So just to kind of piggyback up the debris cleanup and whatnot, say you have a resident who calls in and says they don't have the means to have a tree taken down, or if somebody is older and they can't do it, can they call the city or the county and have them come out and chop a tree down?
We have some programs with the housing department that can help. Actually, we still currently working. Housing has some programs they're currently working with customers still from the last Hurricane Nicole, and we're trying to get them. Of course, they have to qualify for the program, but yes, there are programs out there within the city of Deltona.
What do you mean when you say qualify?
I think it's by income, those kind of things. Make sure all the documentation is submitted.
There's also some nonprofits within the area that they have ministries that they will do this. They'll actually go out to the individual's home and do those kind of things at no cost. There's no qualifying. My church, I go to church over in Sanford. We do it with a partnership through the city of Sanford. And so we have a ministry within our church, and people will call. We'll go out. Elderly people can't change a light bulb, or they've got to fix a ceiling fan, or cut down the limbs and things around the house. So some nonprofit organizations or churches, and then there's no qualifications at all that you have to meet.
Yeah,
it's just a ministry.
After this last hurricane, we have some organizations,
yes, we
churches.
Did, because we had to give them certificates of insurance to the city of Deltona.
Yep.
Any other questions?
But if you say they will reach out to the city, well, how does the city get their information to the residents?
Well, we post it on our website, and the phone calls. We can communicate with the housing department, and we can get that started.
So you could just come up to City Hall
Yes,
and
yes,
talk
ma'am.
to the,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
And it doesn't hurt to try. It all depends on the income, but it varies on the programs too.
But if you're not dirt poor, then you don't qualify for
Well, I mean, I would still try. I would still try.
nothing beats the
During these last storms, even Habitat for Humanity, they actually took some of their volunteers, which of course, we've done this in the past here in the city of Deltona. We've had people who have called in, and we've gone out, different groups and businesses and organizations, painted houses and different things for people who have called in, and they didn't have to meet any kind of qualifications at all. But most of those organizations will let the city know, we're willing to do this, but then that church has to furnish a certificate of liability as well to be on the list. But then when the people call in, the city refers them to these organizations, and they're there to help.
Thank you.
The city does a good job, by the way, Dave, in doing that. And y'all have speeded up the permitting, I understand, from my insured contractors.
And keep an eye, because that train's going to keep on running.
Okay, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David and Danny. So I don't want to throw anybody out there, but I know that we have a very special department aside from the other special departments we have. But I know for a fact that if there's an emergency that somebody needs 911 to take something off their home, I know for a fact that we have men and women who work in our fire department that will do it on their own time. If you call and if it's really an emergency, I know that for a fact because they've done it before. They just only strictly emergencies. We don't say no to our residents, all right? And speaking of our famous fire department, the next speaker is our Chief Schneider. For those of you who have not ever met him, he's the wonderful person that runs our fire departments here in the city of Deltona. And he's also in charge up here when we have a hurricane or something. He runs the Emergency
Operations Center.
Emergency Operations Center.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Like I said, my name's Bill Snyder. I'm the fire chief here with the city of Deltona. And the privilege and the benefit of going last is a lot of what I had to say has already been said. So I'll be brief, and I won't try to go over stuff that we've already gone over. But with that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about before, during, and after the storm, some of the stuff that was kind of briefly talked about. I just want to expand on just a little bit. A lot of what I've got here and what I've got to say is back there on that back table. So please stop back there and pick up their stuff on getting ready for hurricanes, for floods. There's checklists and stuff like that. On how to be prepared for the storms. And again, preparation, like the lieutenant said, and like several others have said, preparation is the key. The first thing is to be prepared, to prepare an evacuation plan, okay? It's one thing to say you're going to evacuate, but where are you going to go? How are you going to get there? What's the plan? You need to make sure that you have a plan that includes your pets, transportation routes on where you're going to go, and what your destination's going to be. Okay. For me, it's my brother-in-law's house. He lives in Tampa. It's the other side of the state. Now, Ian kind of proved that maybe that's not such a great idea because it came in on that side and it tore up over here too. But that's our plan for right now. Actually, it's not my plan; it's my family's plan because my plan is to be here. I'm not going anywhere. The second part is to stay informed. Make sure you do stay informed with credible sources. Okay, get yourself a NOAA weather radio, News 13, quality sources. If you're going to get on social media, don't listen to Joe Bob, the hurricane guy on Facebook. Okay, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You want to look at Facebook pages like Volusia County's emergency management page, the city of Deltona's page. Credible sources, okay? Because Joe Bob really doesn't know what he's talking about. We've already talked about cleaning up around your house. Avoid using the phone before the storm and during the storm especially. Try to avoid using your cell phones if all possible, especially in those moments leading up to the storm. Those networks are going to be extremely busy. There are people that need to get on the phone and talk. If there's emergencies, not just emergency responders, but people that need to get a hold of family members and things like that. So if you don't need to be on the phone, please stay off those networks before the storm. Also during the storm, if you don't need to be on there, please don't. Your cell towers could be affected, and the communications could be limited. So the amount of people that normally would be able to use a cell phone may not be able to because of towers being down and things like that. One thing that wasn't talked about is like for water, fill up your bathtub, fill up buckets and stuff like that, so that you have water to be able to wash, to clean, to flush toilets, things like that. Okay, if you fill up your bathtub, you can flush your toilet several times, if you don't have any water after the storm. Keep your gas tanks at least 3/4 full, and don't wait till the last minute to go fill up your car, because if you do, you're going to run into gas stations that don't have gas. okay? Because when the storm starts to threaten, especially 4 and 5 days out, it's threatening the whole state. It's not just threatening Volusia County, and everybody flips out and fills up their cars, and, gas becomes very limited, okay? So get out there early and do fill up your cars and stuff. Keep them full, so in case you have to leave, you can do so. Keep an emergency kit. That emergency kit is what we have displayed back there. At least 3 days worth of food, okay? Generally, it takes a little bit of time to get resources into the area that's affected by storms. Usually that time frame is about 3 days, okay? So please have at least 3 days worth of stuff ready to go. Evacuations, again, you're going to be told when to evacuate, all right? But if the storm looks like it's coming your way, don't wait to evacuate. Don't wait to be told to evacuate. Evacuate early. If you wait to the last 24 hours before a storm is going to hit and you try to evacuate this area, the roads are going to be packed. And it's going to be very difficult to get out of that area. And if you don't have a full tank of gas when you start to leave, you're going to have problems because all the gas stations on those routes are going to be affected, and there may not be gas along the way. We've had several times where cars are parked on the side of I-4, parked on the side of I-95, because gas stations you can't find gas along your route. So please evacuate early. And what I like to tell people is it's no fun to be hanging out afterwards, after the storm hits, without any power, without any ability to get out and do things, without restaurants or stores being open and that kind of stuff. So if it looks like it's coming this way, maybe it's just a good idea to go take a mini vacation and get out of the area, go find a hotel room where you got power, where you got water, where you got restaurants, and just get out of here, okay, if it looks like it's coming this way, all right? Don't wait to be told to evacuate. Just leave, all right? Like the lieutenant said, or during the storm, okay, during the storm, if you choose not to evacuate, again, stay away from the windows and doors, hunker down into the middle of your house. And like the lieutenant said, remember, there's a point where the first responders are not going to be able to get out anymore, okay? It's not so much the winds blowing over trucks and stuff like that. It'd take a lot of wind to blow over one of my fire trucks, okay? But it doesn't take a lot of wind to throw stuff around, debris. People don't pick up as well as they should. There's debris that flies all over the place, and that debris will take out your first responders as they're trying to get to your house, okay? Now, we'll go out in some pretty hinky stuff, okay? But when it gets up around 40, 50 mile an hour sustained winds, there's just no way that we can get out and safely operate in those areas. So if you do decide to stay, okay, just keep that in mind, that there may be a time where we may not be able to get to you. After the storm, be aware of flooded areas. Please don't get out and walk through any of the flooded areas. Keep in mind there's going to be power lines down. Don't go anywhere near any of those power lines. You don't know if they're still energized or not. If you do evacuate the area, then don't just run right back home right after the storm gets through, okay? Wait until authorities tell you it's safe to come back into the area, all right? A couple websites, so like for evacuation plans or stuff like that, if we don't have it back there on the back table, ready.gov is FEMA's website, ready.gov. Okay, that's a good website. There's plenty of material there, all kinds of different, not just for hurricanes, but for floods, for tornadoes, all kinds of different types of disasters that may occur. It gives you great information about stuff that you may need to do to be ready for that kind of stuff. Also, Volusia County's emergency management website has a lot of material on that as well. And if you can't find what you're looking for on the website, you can give them a call. Their number is 386-254-1500. That's 386-254-1500. If you give them a call, they'll be able to point you in the right direction and that type of stuff as well. City of Deltona also has some good information. Usually, whenever the storm's coming and that kind of stuff, we start, our public information office starts really getting the information out, and they do a really good job at that as well. Generators, again, like the lieutenant said, and just make sure that if you're going to use a generator, that you don't have it near your house, okay? We respond every time there's a storm. We respond to people that have generators. They put them in their house, they put them in their garage, or not only just generators, but sometimes they'll have gas cooking stoves and things like that they'll cook inside their homes. All that stuff produces carbon monoxide, and it doesn't take a long time before that carbon monoxide will get you, okay? So no generators, no open cooking as far as like on gas stuff inside your homes, okay? Especially when you're all sealed up. Finally, I'll just talk a little bit about shelters. Volusia County operates all the shelters here in Volusia County. They decide when they're going to open and when they're not. There's several shelters that are here in the city of Deltona if you need to go to them. There's 3 different types of shelters out there. There's your basic general shelter for the general population that doesn't have any special needs or anything like that. They're your special needs shelters. There's a second type of shelter. This shelter assists evacuees who are elderly, physically, mentally, or sensorily disabled, visually or hearing impaired, or require oxygen of some sort, okay? Those special needs shelters are also pet friendly for special needs patients, okay? So if you're not a special needs patient, then you would want to go to a pet shelter if you have a pet that you need to take with you. And that's the third type of shelter, is a pet-friendly shelter. You can go on the websites, you can go and look for that information. There's 2 types of pet shelters here in Volusia County. The pet shelter that is at the fairgrounds is a pet shelter where you will stay with your pet. And then all the other pet shelters around Volusia County, you're separated from your pet, but there are people there taking care of your pets. Okay, so if you want to stay with your pet and you want to go to a pet shelter, the fairgrounds is where you want to go. Okay, if you're okay with someone else watching your pet during the storm, then you can go to any other pet shelter that's out there. Yes, sir.
You mean the fairgrounds up on 44?
Yes, the 44. Yeah, the fairgrounds out on 44. Yes, sir. 44 and I-4. One last thing about special needs. There's a special needs registry. So if you meet that criteria that I talked about, for the special needs shelter, okay, you can go to Volusia County's website and you can register as a special needs patient, okay? What that does is that puts you on a list of people for special needs. And here in Deltona, what we do is we'll get the list of special needs people that have registered through Volusia County that live in Deltona. We'll give those people a call before the storm hits to make sure to find out whether you're staying or whether you're leaving. And if you say you're staying, then after the storm, we'll give you a call back to see if you're okay. All right? So if you know people that meet the criteria for special needs shelters, then they can sign up for that special needs list, okay, the special needs registry through Volusia County Emergency Management. And the reason we do it through Volusia County is because if we did it through Deltona, some people would sign up in Deltona, some people would sign up in Volusia County, some people may sign up somewhere else, and we have all these different lists floating around. Through Volusia County, we have one list, and we know that it's correct. So. And with that, I think that's all that I have. Any questions? All right, thank you.
I have a question for the chief. So do we still have, or can residents still call, like if they're single, they're elderly, and they're alone? Is there a number they can call and say, I'm by myself, I can't help myself out of here, or anything like that?
Yes, I mean, they can call the city. The city is normal. What happens during a storm is basically two things will happen. First is before we set up their emergency operations center here, we have a normal everyday phone number that you can call here, and they will route you to the appropriate place for something like that. Once the emergency operations center opens up, then we'll have what we call a citizens information line that'll open up, and that'll be broadcasted through our websites and stuff like that, so people can know what that is. And if you call that citizens information line, they will be able to get you the help that you need as well from that angle. The county, Volusia County, also has a citizens information line that'll be broadcasted as well. If it's a general question, you can call the county citizens information line, but if it's specific to Deltona, you're going to want to call either the City of Deltona's main line or that citizens information line for Deltona once it opens up.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? So I have a homework for you guys. When you go home, I want you to look in your house. I want you to search every room, every little closet, and find what or where is the safest place for you to be in if there should be a tornado coming in your direction. I remember when there was a tornado coming towards us, right on I-4, coming from Sanford, and we were keeping track of it, and we all wound up in the laundry room, which is the only room in my house that has no windows and no walls to the outside. 3 dogs, a grandchild, a mother of 91, me and my husband, all in that little room, but we felt safe with pillows and a whole lot of stuff. So go home, find out where your safest room is so that when something like this happens, you're not caught off guard. So I just want to let everybody know that most of the information that was discussed here today, there's some flyers up at the table that you can take. Again, like the websites and everything that was given out to you, there's information, Volusia County, even in the city. I know that our PIO is going to go, being that the hurricane season is around the corner, we're going to put a lot of this information out there for you to use. So I also want to thank all our speakers that were here, our staff. You know, these people were here working from this morning, and they're still here working with us to make sure that they give out information to the residents to be safe during this hurricane season. And I also want to thank our guest speakers who came also during their off time to educate our residents of insurance. I'm sure I'm sitting there and I'm listening to you and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to check on this. But please, for those of you who had those questions, get his number, his address. He's right there on Deltona Boulevard, and stop by. Who knows, he might be able to get you your insurance. And so I also want to tell Brian that maybe for next year I want to see my name in one of those hurricanes, okay? So, Catherine, we ready for the raffle? Yes. We're gonna let Brian be the one to give them out. I mean, we have 5 weather radios to give out. These weather radios are the ones that are recommended by the fire department. I'm telling you, I have one. Mine is about 7 years old. You don't even hear it. You don't even know it's in the house until something is coming your way. So we're going to give them out. If you have a weather radio already, I counted. I see 5 new faces here. We have 5 radios. So if you already have a weather radio and you don't mind that we give those 5 to those 5 new people, I would really appreciate it. Why are you looking at me like that? Betsy. No,
If I get one, I'll give it to her.
okay, so we'll do the raffle. Not a problem. We'll do the raffle. Betsy and I go a long way, so.
388-0115.
There you go.
Right.
It comes with instructions so that you can program it just for your area. If you leave it the way it is, it'll give you everything from South Florida to Central to North, whatever.
388-0119.
Now you'll know if you're going to cancel the games, right?
388-0118.
Oh, Betsy!
Good, good. Two more. 0114. All right. And one more. 0116.
All right. So please take these home tonight, read the instructions, turn them on. They will be your lifesavers. Well, you know, I have it plugged in during non-hurricane season. I have it plugged into the electric, but during hurricane season, I have it plugged in, but I also have batteries. And then at night, I just turn it on with the batteries because you never know when the electric is going to go off. But it is a lifesaver. And I just suggest that you turn a little bit down the volume at night because it'll give you a heart attack in the middle of the night when it goes off. Yes. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. It's, you know, a lot of people walk away comfortable because so much good information is shared. But please keep in mind that we're always here to help you, to answer any questions you have. Mel's office is on Deltona Boulevard. So thank you so much for being here. Just take a look at what the fire department has and take all the information, the flyers from the table in the back. And Brian, thank you so much for being here.